Hello everybody and welcome to this episode where I'm going to show you how to use functions. So functions are a very powerful part of Google Sheets and those of you who have used Excel before will know how useful they can be. And in this episode I'm going to show you how to use the count and sum functions, as well as just giving you a basic overview of how to use them. So there's a few different ways that you can add functions in. I'm going to start off by counting this row here. So the way I'm going to do it first is by clicking on the function button in the right hand of the ribbon, and I'm going to press on count. Now that will automatically put in these characters here. So it's going to put equals count, open bracket, and then it's going to give me a space to type. So I want to count these cells here. So in order to do that, I'm going to define my range. So I'm going to put the value A1 here, and then I'm going to put a colon, and I'm going to put A7. Now you see here, it's going to highlight a range for me here. So this is how you define the range in your formulas, and you just put the starting point of the range, the end point of the range, and a colon in between. And if I now press enter, that's going to come out of the cell and it's going to count the number of values in that range for me. Now let's do the same thing again in the next column over, except this time I'm going to type it out. So you can just put in equals, which is how you start off all your functions. I'm then going to put count, which is the name of the function, and then I'm going to put open bracket. Now the reason that we put an open bracket is because the functions in Google Sheets all take something called parameters. And in this instance, I can put in as many parameters as I want, and each one returns numeric values in a range. So I need to select a range with numeric values for each one. So I'm going to do from B1 to B7. And this time, instead of typing it out like I did last time, I'm just going to select that range and it's going to fill it in for me automatically. I'm then going to put comma, and what that's going to do is it's going to push me over into the second parameter of this function, value 2. And the dot 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 here means I can just do as many as I want. So I'm going to put just one more. I'm also going to put in this range here, and then I'm going to put my close bracket by typing it in, press enter, and you can see now it's counted 14. Now I'm going to repeat this one more time for count over here, and I'm going to count these here. So equals count, and then I'm just going to select these with my arrow keys. But what you'll notice is when I count the values in here, it's not going to count any of them, and that's because these are strings or text. So there's an easy way to fix that, and that is to use the count a formula. And what that does is that counts any values including text. So that's a useful one to know if you get confused why it hasn't counted up your text ones, or if it's missed them out. You don't just have to declare a range with rows, you can just go equals count and then select an entire column. And then as you add new fields into that column or new records into that column, it's going to keep updating and counting those through. Now sum is very similar, except as you can imagine it will sum up the values. So instead of typing equals that cell plus 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 that cell, and adding those all together, we can actually just go equals sum, and we can highlight those up like that, and that will give us 124. Now a couple of quick tips with functions: you can copy and paste them over, and it will just update to the new column. In a later video I'll show you how you can stop that from happening and why that might be useful. And you can also click this little box here and just click and drag them over, and that will sum up. It will just copy that formula over for you, but updating the columns each time. Similarly, you can do the same for rows. So I'm going to just highlight some rows here, and then I'm going to click and drag that down, and it will drag it down for me. Again, we'll go into more details about that autofill feature in a later video. So that's it. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below or join us on our Discord.